Welcome to the Social Impact Level Up podcast. This podcast is made from the spaces I host every week on the Clubhouse app in the Social Impact Level Up Club. If you don't know me, I'm Wendy V, and I am a coach for socially conscious entrepreneurs. I help you develop your social impact mission, clarify your vision, and turn your ideas into action. Every week, I talk to leaders with a social impact mission about money mindset and manifestation. We also hold weekly spaces for our collective to join forces and change the world. In each episode, you'll hear me moderate the conversation with my two co-hosts, Rodrigo Bravo and Santiago Cáceres. Through this podcast, we hope that you will learn, grow, and thrive with our collective. Now, here's a little bit more about this episode. Today's episode is really juicy and really good. Take out your notepads. I very rarely tell you to think about the things that we say beyond just listening to them. Partially because we talk a lot. We say a lot of things in these rooms. There's a lot of really great advice for social entrepreneurs. This episode is so powerful. Several of our veteran entrepreneurs in our community come together in this episode to talk about what it means to move from being an employee to being your own boss. It is something that is full of mindset shifts. I know as I've been navigating it, so many places I have had to change my mind about how I work and what matters to me. I hope you enjoy this episode, Employee to Boss. Today's topic was actually brought to us by one of the community members, Jeff Rosales, who's usually here in this room. I did tell him we were having this conversation with or without him, we're having this conversation. But he had brought up this topic as part of another room where we were saying, the dynamics of moving from employee to boss, it's different for each of us, and we all have our own story. But I'm sure that there are things that resonate with various people in that journey and how you made that journey. And so this is a space, I didn't cultivate it in terms of having notes and a topic that, like I usually do for this space. This room is really our first room of the year to kind of connect as people and to make sure that we are actually, learning about each other's journey and learning from each other's journey. So that's what this room is going to be about today. It's really about storytelling, taking into account how far you've come in your journey and how you want to connect to people and what you want to share. So that's what we're talking about today. Any issues related to that transition from employee to boss, any ideas about how people can go about it more successfully, any challenges that you navigated, all of those things are fair game for what's shared. And we'll just kind of do a sort of popcorn style room. Hey, Rodrigo, I'm just setting up the room. And we'll do a popcorn style room where we're just sharing our stories about, our journey from employee to boss and what that's brought up for us and how, we might be able to support each other in that journey and learning through each other's lifestyle, what you've done.
So I've had several journeys from employee to boss, boss to employee, and back again and so forth. But my very first employee to boss was I was working for Verizon, and I was, I guess, right out of college, I was like 2 years into my career, 3 years into my career when they were doing a buyout, and I said, well, I'm gonna go and become a day trader, and that's what I wanted. I was like, I'm gonna be my own boss. I'm gonna be a day trader, and I got the buyout. They gave me 25 grand, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I quickly, realized that within 4 or 5 months, and I was in grad school at the same time too. I was in Johns Hopkins Business School, and I quickly realized that within 4 or 5 months, I was out of capital from all the investment and the day trading I was doing. So I really did not have a well thought out plan, and I quickly fell on my face. Luckily, I was good at sales, and I ended up working for a real estate auction house as a runner and someone that did the stuff at the auction. So I would get commissions. So I was still self-employed, but I was a commission individual, and I did that to the rest of grad school and was able to survive. But it was a hard lesson learned, and I really didn't have the best plan available. So if you ever want to do that, don't do what I did, which is just, you know, jump out without a parachute, or think you have a parachute and you really don't.
Ooh, that's a good lesson. Yeah. Very good lesson. And so, Doc, I want to ask you a question about that. When you had to transition back to being quote unquote an employee versus being the boss, what was that like for you? Like when you were mentally making that choice, did it feel okay, or did you make it feel okay? Like, how did you process that?
Can you hear me? Oh,
Yep. Yeah.
sorry. I think I'm went into the matrix. Give me 1 second here.
Okay. And Abraham, I'm going to bring you up while we're waiting. And so, just a quick reset of the room as I'm bringing Abraham up. Feel free to come up and speak. We're just here talking about people's stories and their journey from
Okay,
employee to boss.
okay, I'm back. I'm back. So for me, it was very interesting because I had a friend of mine who had a nonprofit organization, and he's been telling me for almost a year, "Hey, my brother's gonna leave. I need someone to take over the position as executive director. I know you're in grad school right now. If you're, interested, I would like for you to be the ED." So, when I left, it was around October, November, early October, or late October, early November when I did all the paperwork. So originally, I wanted to, you know, do this, day trading, and I was like, oh, I'll do some day trading for a while and make some good cash, and then when they're ready, then I'll become their ED. It took until August before the guy decided to quit and leave. So I again ran out of cash sometime around April, and when I did go back, it was weird because since I wasn't making any real money, then they were like, well, since you really haven't had an income, can you take this amount? And when you're starving, not figuratively or literally, but just figuratively, you take any amount because you just want to get back in the game, back to being employed. And I took a $10,000 haircut on my salary. So one thing I've learned is a lot of times people look at your last salary to figure out where you belong in their structure. And that was a hard lesson to learn that, well, I was making almost $50,000, as a web developer for Verizon. And well, now I'm basically, making 37 as the executive director for a nonprofit. And at first I felt, well, it's a small group. But then once I got involved and I saw the budget, I'm like, whoa, you make a lot of money, and I'm getting screwed over for this. So lessons learned as a young 20-something-year-old trying to make a difference and trying to like move his career up as fast as possible.
Ooh, man, there were some things in there that were golden. I think that that idea of what is your worth after you've taken a little break from traditional employment. I've had that conversation multiple times with people because I think my salary definitely is high. I mean, I was a C-suite employee, so my salary is high. If I'm trying to get a salary, when I'm an entrepreneur, my salary is zero, obviously. But I think that it is going to be difficult for me to make that transition if I have to do it. It's exactly like your situation is saying. I'm thinking, okay, if I do end up getting into the same situation you were talking about, one, and I do have to go back to being someone's employee, what will that mean to my salary? And it will most definitely mean I will come down. And so I think that that realization and your confirmation, it's although it's off-putting, it's still off-putting. It's still, even I use it as a driver to continue to say, no, 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 this entrepreneur thing is going to work. It has to work because I don't want to take that hit. I want the potential of unlimited amount of money that I can earn. So I think it's a great lesson, and I'm glad that you shared it. Thanks, Doc. I want to invite Abraham and Lorenzo. I always want to call you Smooth, and then I'm like, no, you have a name. So Abraham and Lorenzo, welcome to the stage. Today we are talking in the Social Impact Entrepreneur Collective about the journey from employee to boss, or maybe even back to from boss to employee, and any issues, lessons, or things that you've learned in your own experience. So it's popcorn style, so I'm going to stop talking, and whoever wants to join in, join in. If you're just hanging out listening, feel free to come up to the stage and share your experience as well.
I actually kind of disagree with the whole experience with Doc because I think it's a whole mindset when it comes to like a 1099 self-employed guy. It also depends on like how much you get paid off of one sale, right? So they could be like breadcrumbing you with like little bit of payments and then maybe giving you a raise later. But like I think for me, it's kind of backwards. When I was an employee, I used to work for Solar City. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Cool. So when I was an employee, I worked for Solar City, and it was 16 bucks an hour plus commission, right? And so ended up being a great all-star. Did great in 2015. 2016 was a little bit slower, and then this November or December of 2016, Tesla acquired Solar City. And I don't know if a lot of you know, but usually it's a business strategy for when like a new owner comes in. There's two ways: either start doing a bunch of layoffs, or implement their own strategies and figure out a way for people to start quitting. So what they did is they ended up cutting our commission. So I was just relying on technically the hourly wage, and I'm used to making a certain amount of commission, and the results are the same, right? You make the certain amount. There's a pattern. You make a certain amount of sales. That's exactly how you get paid. So life was good for like about 2 3 years, and then because I have no control over what's going on, I ended up just not being able to provide for my family. This was in 2017. Ended up losing everything, and so I don't agree 100% on like the employee aspect, only because I went through that and I had no skill.
The difference between how you make your money when you're considered an employee is very much different depending on what industry you're in. I think that's a great point. And also, Abraham, I love that you came up and said, I want to disagree. This space is always open for conversation. You don't ever feel like you guys can't come up and say what you need to say, even if it's not exactly in agreement with somebody else. Like, I always want this space to be cultivated in a way where folks can join and have a discussion that really is meaningful with all the different viewpoints. So absolutely, anybody who has a differing viewpoint from something that's shared, come up and share your experience. That way we know, what all the gamut of what's going on is.
So I know that, I just kind of saw the name of the room and it caught my attention from employee to boss. Obviously, uh, kind of give you a little bit of a backstory in my journey. I started as an artist, then I jumped into the promoter world in 2007, 2008, 2009. Had a lot of success, but I was really young at the time, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I was, just kind of learning the ropes, paying my dues, so to speak. Maybe worked a regular job. Like, I had never had any real work experience outside of like working fast food as a teenager. So whenever my wife was expecting our first child, there was a lot of things that kind of went on during that time frame. But ultimately, after she was born, I attempted to look for a job. I went to try to go get a job, and I had no luck. I was applying for as many positions as I could. I started reaching out to a lot of people that I knew because I was well known in the area, and I just wasn't able to land anything meaningful. And so then I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to what I know. So I started going back to doing live events. And this, mind you, this is 2010. So this is 11 years ago. And during that time frame, I did a few live events, I saved up some money, bought a new car, and I thought I was on my way to just doing it full time. And then we found out we were having a son, like literally within 4 months of my daughter being born. So at that point, I said, you know what, I'm 25 years old at this point. I feel like I can continue to roll the dice and try to do it independently, but the fact of the matter is I was scared. So I went and I got a job. I reached out to a friend of mine, and he happened to be working at a wireless store, and he got me into the wireless business. And I took a very low paying job with the intent of just working my way up. I was there for about a year and a half, and I realized that I was pretty underpaid. So I ended up getting out, and I took a position at T-Mobile. I was actually at T-Mobile for about 4 years, and in that time frame that I was there, I worked my way up the company ladder. I was very proud of the things that I did while I was there. I was able to do a lot of things that like the average employee doesn't get the opportunity to do, and I worked my way up to manager, and obviously I was kind of working my way up to a bigger position. But ultimately, I kind of started realizing that there was a ceiling there, and for me, though I was able to accomplish a lot of great things, and I was trying to starting to fuse the worlds that that I came from. It wasn't until 2015 that I made the decision. I said, you know what, I'm not fulfilled anymore. I'm not excited about coming to work. I'm not excited about it's not challenging anymore. If anything, it became too easy. It became too easy. For me, kind of my background, I have aspirations. I have leadership aspirations. I want to do more. I want to reach more people. And so I started daydreaming about, music and doing events again. Like it was just something that started crossing my mind, and I started thinking about a lot. And while I was working, I took some money and I invested it into doing a live event in April of 2015, and then that's where it started. And I started this journey of doing events again. Well, long story short, just kind of expedite it. By the time we get to September, I did a series of live events, and in September 2015, I decided, you know what, I think it's time to leave T-Mobile. I think they had enough of me. I've had enough of them. I left, and I wasn't financially prepared to leave, so I jumped and I took a position at another company. And I would say within a month, I was out of that company just because I didn't want to work anymore for anybody. And in between all of this, mind you, I freelance. I do graphic design. I do web design, but I still hadn't pieced everything together as to what I wanted to do. I just do like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna start doing live events full time. Like I know that I have the skill set to do so. I have the expertise to do so, but I was still hesitant. And you read all these stories about entrepreneurship and how to go about being an entrepreneur. People will tell you, in order for you to be self-employed comfortably, you have to have a 1 year rolling average of your salary in your bank to be able to be comfortable. And the thing about entrepreneurship and being self-employed is the reality is there's nothing comfortable about it. It's a roller coaster ride. There's ups, there's downs, there's highs, there's lows, there's in betweens, and you just have to know how to persevere and continue to fight for what it is that you want. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that are working regular day jobs that aren't fulfilled. They're not happy. You know, I my sister recently was expressing to me she just left Wells Fargo, and she had a really well paying job, and she was telling me like, I'm not fulfilled there anymore. I want to start my own business. And I was telling her, look, from my experience, from what I went through, I would rather struggle to make ends meet and be fulfilled than be unfulfilled and make a good living. I know that sounds crazy to some people, but it's about peace of mind. It's about our mental health. It's about what we want. So I was approaching the end of the year, I did take one last job and I was not happy. So going into 2016, I made the decision. I was like, you know what? I'm leaving this job at the end of January. I had income tax coming. I had a series of events coming up. And this is a true story. Like I've actually shared the story on Facebook multiple times. But I quit my day job, and this is the last day job I ever had in January of 2016. And I quit with $250 in my bank account. And that's the lowest amount of money I had ever had. Like up to
Damn.
that, up to that point, I had been pretty good about being, saving money, and I had a good paying job at, T-Mobile. Obviously, I wouldn't say I had a super paying, a high paying job, but salary base was about 60,000 plus bonuses and incentives and all the other stuff that I was doing in between. So I was clearing 75 to 100 grand a year, just depending on how hard I hustled. And when I quit with $250 in my bank account, mind you, I always tell that story, but the truth is, I knew I had income tax coming, and I knew I had a series of events coming up, and I had approximately 7 shows scheduled for that February, and I was able to fulfill all those obligations. So when I left my job the last day of January, I had $250 in my bank account. By the end of February, which was February 28th, I believe that year of 2016, after doing all my events, I had about $30,000 in my bank account, and I remember telling myself, "Wow." Granted, some of that was income tax money, but a lot of that was the event. So, like I made over $24,000 in live events in that little time frame, and I said, "Wow, I just made what I would have spent realistically about half a year working. I just made that in less than a month." I was convinced I was about to take off like a rocket, and this was it. Like now I'm about to be, a millionaire or whatever. And anyways, that's when the journey began, and I started learning about really what entails to be an entrepreneur, what it entails to be self-employed, and how difficult it can be, but how fulfilling it can also be if you're doing what you love. And Look, man, I'm in 2022. I haven't had a day job since. Obviously, COVID was very challenging for all of us, so that goes without saying. But I've learned to pivot. I've learned to find different revenue streams. They always say the average millionaire has multiple strings of income, right? Seven, I think they said 7 sources of income. It was never about the money to me, though we do have to make a living. And trust me when I tell you guys, I'm very fortunate to have a skill set that allows me to make money in multiple ways. Whether I put on my graphic designer hat or my web designer hat or my social media manager hat, or I'm an event promoter or I create content. Like, I have different ways of making money, and I'm fortunate enough to make it all the time. Like, I could get a call right now and it'll pay me, $500 or $1,000. But there's also days that I don't make anything. There's weeks that I don't make anything. And I've learned not to stress during those moments, because I've kind of learned that everything is going to be based on you, right? I get people all the time asking me for advice, like, what advice would you give somebody to be self-employed? You know what I'm saying? And mind you, like I just told you, when I quit, I didn't have a lot of security. I believed in myself, and I was foolish. I was foolish and smart enough to believe in myself to that extent. But you'll be surprised how far you can get with self-belief, because I went on to have a lot of success with my company. I still have a lot of success with my company. I routed a lot of national tours, worked with a lot of national recording artists, a lot of artists that I grew up listening to, that I grew up admiring. I got an opportunity to work with, and I got an opportunity to navigate their careers in a sense, and that's very fulfilling for me. That's something that I aspired to be since I was a kid. I always wanted to be in the music business, and I tell people all the time, like, the only key to doing and having success and whatever it is that you're going for is not only self-belief, but it's just the gift of initiative. Like, we look at initiative and we overlook what it entails to actually take initiative to do what you want. I always tell people there's 2 reasons why people don't make it in this world. It's lack of knowledge and lack of initiative, or lack of initiative and lack of knowledge. But the reality is the lack of knowledge stems from the lack of initiative that it takes and that it requires to learn the things necessary. So it all goes back to that. And I feel like as long as you take that chance on yourself, you'll be surprised how far you can go. And despite the hardships and the ups and downs and some of the financial mistakes that I made, and some of the financial hardships that I faced specifically the end of 2018 and half of 2019, it was very difficult. I mean, I was very, very close to tapping out and saying, I can't do this anymore, because it got difficult. But I persevered, and I'm in a far better place than I've been in like probably ever now. And it just kind of goes to show, and that's what I want to leave you guys with, if that makes any sense. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but I just wanted to share
Oh
my
my
taste.
God. No, you just like mic dropped the whole topic. I love it. I am so excited that you were here. I feel like you just spoke to my soul, because this is exactly why I was just telling Sonia in the background. This is exactly why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think I'm getting to that point where I'm like, oh, so many months without money. And you're right. It is the initiative to keep going. Like, what did you do today to actually try to make money? And I was trying to explain this to my niece the other day. Like, you could wake up any day you want and make some money. You literally could. Part of it is, how you've positioned yourself and what you've been doing before that day. But some of it really is about that initiative on the day of. And I think that that's the thing that I have to really keep reinforcing for myself, is it is that continual action. And it's not always daily, because it's not always good for your mental health, but I think that you're right, like persevering through the difficult times and being able to take initiative, having the self-belief is equally as important. And I think that the other thing you said that really stuck out was the multiple skill sets, because that has been a long time. I always talk about transferable skills. What can you use your skills for that you may not even be thinking you could use it for, but that it'll help somebody out in a way that they need? And that is a really big deal. I mean, you have some awesome skills, but I think we all have different skills that we bring, and being able to dig into those and decide, how am I going to share those skills, and what am I going to do with them, and how are they going to bring me not only the people I want to work with and serve, but also the money that I'm interested in having as well. So thanks for coming today. I'm
No,
so, that was amazing.
anytime, I mean, look, and the point that I was trying to make, because I was kind of going off subject, was I had a friend of mine, and I remember that he had reached out to me. He's like, man, I want to go all in. I want to be self employed. What suggestions do you have for me, and what recommendations do you have for me? And he was looking at me as a source of hope and a source of inspiration. And I told him, I said, look, man, the truth is, there's no secret sauce to this, right? Obviously, I mentioned the initiative, but I said, look, being self employed can and will be whatever you want it to be, right? And everybody talks about having your own schedule, whatever. But the truth is, like, it's also a matter of how bad you want it, right? Now, in his case, he was a graphic designer and a web designer. I said, dude, like whenever I worked in retail, right? Specifically, we were in a sales realm, so everything was about sales. Everything was about quotas and monthly goals. And to me, I learned a lot about core competencies within management from being in a retail environment. So I applied a lot of that to what I do now. And I said, one of the biggest things that they talk about is managing and measuring success, right? Like, how do you know what you're falling short of if you don't know what you're going for? And you have to have a drive for results. And there's all these other core competencies. But I was explaining to him, I said, if you want the business, are you going to go out and get the business, right? Because as a self-employed business, we're up against corporations. We're up against, people that have millions and millions of dollars in our backing them. In my case, I'm a live entertainment company that produces live concerts. I don't have Live Nation money. I don't have AEG money, so therefore I'm gonna get overlooked. I might have all the same skills. If not, I might even be more qualified in some senses. But at the end of the day, I don't have that to follow, to fall back on. So it's going to require a lot of me and a lot of the initiative and the want. And I said, so if you're a graphic designer or a web designer, are you cold calling people? Are you going to businesses? Are you going knocking on doors? Are you I mean, I know that the phone book doesn't exist anymore, but are you going on Google? Are you looking up businesses in your area that you can, potentially pitch your services to? And not everybody has the gift of gab. Not everybody knows how to verbalize and communicate. But at the end of the day, if this is what you want, how bad do you actually want it? Because anything that you want, for one, anything worth having is not going to come easy, but you have to find a way to make it happen. And that's all going to come down to the want, to the initiative, to the hunger, and to the fact that, like, you're setting these goals. Like, what are your goals? Like, if you know your revenue goal per month is $5,000 because that's what it's going to take for you to make a living, then you're gonna find a way to make your $5,000. And if that means you developing a new skill set, such as calling people and communicating, like, hey, I noticed that you don't have a website. Hey, I noticed that you can use a revamp on your graphics. Hey, whatever, anything that you could do to land clients. Believe me when I tell you, you could do it. You just have to want to do it. And I'll leave you with this. I'm guilty. I'm extremely guilty of allowing myself multiple times over the last 6 years to get my back against the wall. And it's a very arrogant way of thinking, and I've learned to get better about it. But I used to let my bank account get lower and lower and lower, and then to the point where I'm like, oh shit, now I gotta make money. And then all of a sudden, I wait for that last minute that my back's against the wall, and I start swinging, and then boom, I make a couple $1,000s, and then I recline and I wait for it to happen all over again. I don't have that mindset anymore. Now I'm piling up, piling up, piling up. But before, it used to be like, oh, I just made a good contract. I just made some good money. That's it. I'm falling back for the next whatever. And some people work comfortably like that. And that's the luxury you have of being self-employed. But at the same time, if you let your foot up off the pedal, eventually you start running out of gas. So you got to constantly, apply pressure and, and apply yourself to whatever it is that you're trying to achieve.
Yo, smooth man. I love what you said. And I get what you're going with this whole, pedal to the metal. You're back against the wall. I think it has to do with somewhat in our DNA. We're either hunters or gatherers. And if you take it to modern day, those who are like really good at sales, they're the hunters. Like, oh, I can make this deal happen, and they make the deal happen, and then they slow it down, and then they wait for the next deal. And then you have those that like, okay, I need a recurring income. And one of the issues that I had originally was I didn't have a recurring income. I depended on auction houses and all that other stuff while to get my money. So I did work for that nonprofit for a while. But what I ended up doing was I left and I decided that I wanted to get contract out. So that was my second time I left from employee to boss. I contracted myself out and made almost as much as a contractor as I did as independent as an employee. And then I looked at other not small nonprofit organizations that needed an ED but couldn't afford it full time. So I was an ED for two nonprofits and a director of after school program for a third nonprofit. And so every week I had an income coming in steadily because I was able to negotiate deals with each one and provide the services that I could instead of for one and killing myself and not having fun and feeling like I'm getting screwed. I was doing it for three and still had the time to go out for events and do other things I wanted to do and still get paid for it. So I hear what you're saying, because I was like that for a minute. I was waiting for that next big home run, the next auction house, the next to get paid, and I realized I needed something that comes in every week or every month. And like right now, I have one client because I have a full time job, but I have that one client that I run ads for. That's all I do. I run ads four times a month, and I do the copy for them. And it's just basically it comes in and out, and I'm getting my money. I put some money, for the ads, and then some for myself. And if I can get two more of those, then I'll be happy. And it all depends on what your goal is. And but I really like what you're saying. And if you're thinking of going out on your own, you have to distinguish between either hitting the home run all the time or just getting those singles every day. And then they get that one home run every once in a while. For me, selling an art piece is my home run. So every time I sell an art piece, that's an extra whatever amount is, and I really like that because I still get to be that hunter, and I still go after I want to sell my next art piece at a higher price. So those who are out there,
And you know that analogy that you just used is an analogy I use all the time. I said, man, everybody gets so fixated on the end result, right? But it's the process that gets you to the end result, and you got to love the process and constantly want to refine the process to get to the end result. And in this case, I always use the analogy of baseball. I said, man, everybody's so fixated on the home run or the grand slam, and don't get me wrong, we'll get those from time to time, and if we're really great at what we do, we'll get them, pretty frequently. But we should still, we should. It's okay to get a single, a double, or a triple from time to time, as long as we're not striking out, which is in this case not landing any jobs or not making any
yeah,
money.
that's true.
You know,
That's true.
we're good. And I don't think people comprehend that it's okay. Like there's no shame in the game if that's all we're doing. And I think the biggest thing for me that I've learned even now is and I'm glad for the hardships. I'm glad that I dealt with some of the deals that I dealt with because everything is a lesson. Everything's a brand building situation. But always remember, man, you will never get what you're worth. You get what you negotiate. And so as long as you're negotiating accordingly and you have everything the right way, because I'll tell you the truth, I do graphic design and I don't like broadcasting it because I don't really enjoy doing it. But can I do it? Yes. Do I get offered money to do it? Yes. Have I got paid recently in the last 7 days to do it? Yes. Do I like to do it? No. I absolutely do not like doing it because that's not my passion. That's not where I'm fulfilled at. But it's a single, it's a double. I'll take the money. It's not always what I want to do, but if that I can't complain because at the end of the day, if I negotiate a rate, that's what I'm gonna get.
That's true, man. I mean, again, I don't advertise my marketing social media stuff because I do that for my day job, and that's fine, and I don't mind doing it. But I had one client that was like, I want this, I want that, and they couldn't afford me, and they wanted me to do like 500 different things, like post every day, and I'm like, nope, I post once a week, and I boost it, and it runs all the way through. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, then you got to find somebody else. I'm not posting three times a day. That's not that's not the way I work. This is the way I work, and you still get the same results or even better. And they're like, oh, I don't want to spend ad money. I'm like, okay, then If you don't want to spend ad money, then I'm not going to help you. I only work with ad money because why am I going to bust my butt for a low, like you said, negotiation? And I've negotiated myself out of all these contracts except for one because that guy makes good money off of trees and he likes what I'm doing and we're happy. But you're right. You negotiate and then you have to stick to the deal.
Man, this conversation is so good. So good, guys. Today, we're talking about employee to boss because I am still in the mindset of wanting to make sure that I am grounding myself in this concept of I am the boss of my business. So that's what we're talking about this today. I wanted to go to Sonia really quickly just to kick off the conversation again and just also welcome everybody who joined us. And you're always welcome to come up for the conversation. Sonia, welcome.
Hello, how you doing? I'm so excited to be in here with you all, and this discussion is powerful because a lot of times we need to talk about this, and so many people don't talk about it. So, my name is Sonia Leray. I'm the president and CEO of La Paz Image Consultants, and I'm also a lifestyle relationship counselor, fashion psychologist, educator, and motivational speaker. And I feel like I can speak on this greatly because my path first started off in music, and I'm a trained singer. I'm a classically trained singer. I sing about 6.5 octaves, and I'm a spinto coloratura. And I started out in this industry very young, and I literally was on my way. And lo and behold, a major turn happened in my life. I was in medical school at the time, going for my degrees and all. And because I have this talent, my mom, everywhere we went, she used to, it didn't matter what restaurant, if they had an open mic, she was like, go sing. And I would go up and sing. And ended up that night that I went in, I sang one night, and lo and behold, it was a couple of people from a major label and from a studio in Pennsylvania. And they asked me to come into the studio, and they was interested in seeing how it would sound, once they recorded me. And as they say, the rest is history. Needless to say, I started my journey on like the mom and pop circuit. I was traveling all over the place, doing different concert dates. Finally got signed as an opening act for a major artist and was going to do their show. But the night before, I started to feel sick. And literally, if I could just unscrew the top part of my head, I felt like my brain could just expand and I would feel better. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But I ended up going on and doing the show. And my mom was like, you know what? Because she's my manager, she stated, you need to call the doctor, see what they say. And being young and kind of cocky, I was like, okay, right. I called the doctor and he said I needed to come to the hospital. And I was like, does this man understand what is about to take place in my life? Needless to say, I didn't go. So I went to the show that night and everything. And it was just, I was so sick. I couldn't wait till the last note came out. And just as I cleared the stage from where the audience couldn't see me, lo and behold, I collapsed. And this is where my story takes a major, major turn. I ended up passing out and lost consciousness. They rushed me to the hospital. They called my mother and told her that they believed that I had meningitis and that I needed to have a spinal tap, a lumbar puncture immediately. And so she, of course, consented and they did my lumbar puncture. But unbeknownst to all of us, the resident did not wait for his attending physician and he ended up paralyzing me. And I spent 5.5 years in a wheelchair. But as I was going through this, my mother comes to me and I was in rehab and she's stating, oh my goodness, your life is just over. It's just done. Everything that you thought. And, at that split second, I thought to myself, well, my life isn't over because I had established my company when I was 18 years old. And literally, I hadn't really worked on it because I was so into my music. And I was still in medical school doing the things that I needed to do to become a psychologist and all. And it doesn't change that, of course, my dream and my desire was always to do music. That's what I thought I would always do. But in that split second, I had a choice of like, I was either going to wallow in all of this or I was going to literally let her know that no, my life isn't over. I'm still alive. I'm still here. I'm still Sonia Leray. And that's just what I did. And needless to say, my mom says, well, if that's the case, then we need to tell your story. And I was like, what story? She says, you were down, but you're not out. And she says, and you're going to discuss with people and let people know how you have overcome this and how you are not feeling like woe is me or sorry for yourself. Because not one time did I feel sorry for myself. I didn't even sue the doctor that did this to me, because how could I sue someone was basically a mirror of myself. I was cocky, I was arrogant, I was on the top of the world with this voice of mine. And so, in turn, now he and I are best friends. He works to really help rehabilitate people that have actually gone through the same thing or struggling to try to come to grips with being in a wheelchair. And so, my pathway and my journey has been dynamic. And I can honestly say, just as I told Wendy, I would never change anything that I've gone through. I would never wish this on anyone else, because how could I? I could never do that to someone, because in my heart, in my soul, I know that it's made me a better person, a better therapist, and even more compassionate towards those that have struggles. So I would encourage anyone that is on this journey of being an entrepreneur, really self evaluate yourself, really tap into your purpose and understand what you're doing, and then run at it full force and take the leap and have faith in yourself, as well as knowing that you have something to offer to everyone. And so, Wendy, I appreciate you so much and allowing me to speak, and I release the mic to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for creating this room. I don't know if you can hear me or not,
Yes, yeah,
but
you're fine. Hi, Jed.
okay,
Welcome.
cool,
Is this your
cool.
first time in this
Hello.
club?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
hey,
Um,
welcome. Good to,
Thank
so
you so
introduce
much.
yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, and what do you
Okay,
want to share?
thank you, thank you. My name is Jad Farajullah. I hold 2 bachelor degrees, and I have multiple skills like web development and video editing and translation. Um, yeah, and my questions. I'm originally from Iraq. I live in California for 10 years now, and my question are in terms of like seeking an opportunity as an entrepreneur. Like 8 years ago I used a Craigslist where I offered my skills in translation, and I made up really good upscale connections. But right now, like after graduating, and I was like looking for an opportunity with my degree, and I couldn't find any, and I kept like hustling. But right now, like I was like learning other skills like web development and video editing, like advanced video editing. And I'm curious to know what would you do, or where would you go to find the leads or buyers that are interested in your skills, beside like using Craigslist or Fiverr, if you're familiar with. And also like for web development, how would you find a business that needs web development online? Thank you.
Ooh, good question. I know, Lorenzo, you had started talking about this earlier when you were mentioning some of the places that people can look for leads that are maybe even unconventional. So I don't know if you want to talk or anybody else, but feel free. Anyone wants to answer that question.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I have friends that do web development, web design, graphic design. I myself, I do some of that stuff. Obviously, I don't broadcast those services anymore, but I can, and I'm more than qualified to do so. I think one of the biggest things is like I try to. I think a lot of us have a tendency to rely on like a referral system, like somebody refers us or whatever. I just think that in life in general, we have to be a little bit more aggressive, not in a negative way, but more aggressive in terms of what it is that we're trying to get. In this case, clients, and taking that initiative to get more business. It requires, searching for the business or seeking the business, whether it's going online and messaging people and asking them if there's a need, or if they know anyone that may need the service, or finding website forums, or Facebook groups, or also as well, going on Google, or even just jumping in your car and going up and down, independent businesses, whether it be a restaurant, a tire shop, whatever. Like I've I've seen and I've known just from doing my own case study where I'm from, and I'm from Dallas Fort Worth, Texas, which is one of the top 5 most populated metropolitan areas in the United States. I think number 4 to be exact. And you'll be surprised how many small businesses don't have websites, don't have any type of representation online. So I just think that when you take the initiative to go look for the business rather than wait for the business to come to you, that's when you'll see like more of a conversion rate and a higher success rate.
I love that. I love that. And I also wanted to offer, Jed, I have been a blogger for a number of years, and I know that bloggers don't always know web design as well as a web designer or someone who's been trained in it. So another group you could think about, just particularly who obviously need web help, is someone who owns a website, right? So whether it's a business or a blog or whoever, if they are not an expert in managing their website or doing changes on their website, anybody who has like Lorenzo said earlier, an outdated website or a website that has it, maybe the theme needs to be changed or something more complex than what they actually want to do on their own, you could offer services that kind of take something off of their plate. That way they aren't, having to do that tech part, and, they would just provide you the pictures, the words, whatever it is that you require. So I don't know, does that help you out? Just give you some ideas.
Another thing real quick before I forget, I don't know what you charge, but I know that when I did my research locally of some of the companies that were maintaining and doing maintenance on local websites, some of these companies were charging anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 per website. And here I am, doing my own websites for anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. I had a company that had me on a retainer where they were paying me $500 a month just to update their website, kind of to Wendy's point, where they just wanted something that was a little bit more simple, something that we can kind of keep maintain. And but again, this kind of goes to the point earlier in this conversation where you're never going to get what you're worth. You're going to get what you negotiate. She's absolutely correct. Like most companies have standard landing pages or outdated websites, or aren't maximizing on what they can be doing in the SEO, for the search engine. So those are all areas of opportunities. Furthermore, one of the spaces, me coming from music or me being in music, a lot of independent artists, a lot of artists, and even businesses for that matter, have kind of steered away from getting, official websites done because social media has allowed them to feel like, okay, it's enough with an Instagram, it's enough with a Twitter, it's enough with a Facebook. But one thing about, getting verified on social media, every single, you know, business, every single recording artist, every single personality, in order for them to get verified, they have to have, obviously media and press coverage, but they have to have an official website. So it's very important for people to have that. And, just making sure that they understand the importance of it. That all becomes part of your pitch, and you shouldn't have to convince somebody that they need a website. If they're really a true business, they should want one. They should know that they need one, and so that's something that I would just kind of reiterate.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your responses, and they are very genuine and authentic. I highly appreciate them.
So make sure you join the club. I know, yeah. Make sure you join the club. Yeah, all the people who come through this club are very authentic, genuine, helping type people. We try to provide a lot of support. And this is, like I said before, a space where people can come and ask for support and ask questions and to be able to get that from community. So that's why I call it a collective, because it is really a space cultivated by the folks who come and join. Now that you've joined our community by listening to this podcast episode, I want to welcome you to participate in a conversation with our collective very soon. If you're not on the Clubhouse app, you can connect to me on any social media platform as Wendy Veloz, Veloz. I'd like to thank everyone in our community who participated in this episode, and especially my partners in crime, Santiago and Rodrigo. Until next episode, keep changing the world.